In the dense, untamed heart of the Calabar bush, where the air hung heavy with the scent of earth and decay, there lived a hunter named Effiong. His name was known far beyond the shadowed trails, for he was a man of prodigious skill, whose arrows had felled countless beasts, amassing him wealth that gleamed like the morning dew. The villagers spoke of him with a mix of awe and envy, and none knew him better than his friend Okun, a fellow hunter who dwelt nearby, his hut a humble cluster of mud and thatch beneath the sprawling arms of a baobab. But Effiong was a man of reckless appetites, his fortunes squandered on feasts where palm wine flowed like rivers, and roasted yams piled high as hills. He ate and drank with all who crossed his path, until his coffers ran dry, and the once mighty hunter stood humbled, his purse as empty as the barren trails he now trod. Driven by hunger's gnawing bite, Effiong returned to the forest, his bow taut and his eyes sharp, but the spirits of the wild seemed to have turned against him. Day after day, night after night, he stalked the undergrowth, his footsteps silent as a shadow, yet no creature fell to his arrow. The forest, once his ally, now mocked him with its silence. Starvation crept closer, and in desperation he sought out Okun, whose steady hand and prudent ways had preserved his own modest wealth. "Okun, my brother," Effiong said, his voice low, carrying the weight of shame, "lend me 200 rods, and I swear by the ancestors, I shall repay you on the appointed day. Come to my house then, with your gun loaded, and you shall have your due." Okun, his face weathered by sun and suspicion, nodded slowly, counting out the rods with calloused fingers. "I will come," he said, his tone as firm as the earth beneath his feet, "and I will bring my gun." Now Effiong's life had not been spent solely among men. In his wanderings, he had forged strange alliances in the wild. Once, deep in the forest where the trees whispered secrets older than time, he had met a leopard, its eyes like burning coals, and they had shared a kill, blood staining the earth as they spoke of mutual respect. Another time, a bushcat, sleek and cunning, had crossed his path, and they had traded tales under a moonlit canopy. At a farm where he once sought shelter, he had befriended a goat, its stubborn bleating a song of survival, and a cock, proud and strutting, whose crow heralded each dawn. To each of these creatures, Effiong now turned, his mind weaving a plan as intricate as a spider's web. To the leopard he went first, finding the beast lounging on a low branch, its tail flicking like a whip. "Old friend," Effiong said, his voice smooth as honey, "lend me 200 rods, and I will repay you on the same day I settle with Okun. If I am not at home, take what you find in my compound and feast." The leopard's eyes gleamed, and it growled its assent, the promise of meat sweeter than any coin. Next, Effiong sought the goat, grazing in a clearing where the grass was tender. "Brother goat," he said, kneeling to meet its stubborn gaze, "lend me 200 rods, and on the appointed day, come to my house. If I am absent, take what you will." The goat bleated, a sound both agreement and warning, and Effiong moved on. To the bushcat, he spoke in the shadows, promising the same, and to the cock, he offered identical terms, each creature nodding to the bargain, unaware of the others. The appointed day dawned, and Effiong, with the cunning of a fox, prepared his trap. He scattered golden grains of corn across the dust of his compound, their scent a siren's call to the unwary. Then, slipping into the forest's embrace, he left his home deserted, the air thick with anticipation. The cock arrived first, its feathers glinting in the early light, its beak tapping the earth as it pecked at the corn. "Effiong owes me," it clucked, its voice sharp with indignation, "but this will do for now." It ate greedily, oblivious to the eyes watching from the shadows. The bushcat slunk in next, its paws silent as death. Seeing the cock, its hunger stirred, not for rods but for flesh. "Effiong is not here," it hissed, "but this cock will pay his debt." With a pounce, swift and merciless, it seized the cock, its claws sinking deep, and the bird's final cry was swallowed by the morning. The bushcat tore into its prize, feathers scattering like fallen leaves, when the goat arrived, its hooves drumming the earth. "Where is Effiong?" it bellowed, its voice a challenge. Seeing the bushcat hunched over its bloody feast, the goat's temper flared. With a mighty charge it lowered its horns and struck, sending the bushcat tumbling. The cat, too small to fight, snarled in frustration, grabbed the cock's remains and fled into the bush, its claim to the rods lost in its retreat. The goat, now lord of the compound, bleated triumphantly, its voice echoing through the trees. It grazed on the sparse grass, muttering to itself, "Effiong will pay, or I'll have his hide." But its victory was short-lived. The leopard, drawn by the scent of goat flesh, crept closer, its belly empty, and its patience thinner than a blade. It watched the goat, which nibbled unaware, its head dipping to the leaves of a fallen tree it favored. "Bah!" the goat cried now and then, its voice a defiant song, but it did not see the shadow moving closer. With a single, bone-crushing leap, the leopard struck, its jaws closing around the goat's neck. The beast fell, lifeless, and the leopard began its feast, the air thick with the scent of blood. At that moment Okun approached, his gun slung across his shoulder, his steps cautious as he neared Effiong's compound. The crunching of bones reached his ears, and he froze, his hunter's instinct sharp. Peering over the fence he saw the leopard, its muzzle red with gore, tearing into the goat. Okun raised his gun, his hands steady, and fired. The shot rang out and the leopard collapsed, its life snuffed out like a candle. Effiong, who had been watching from a hidden vantage, emerged with a cry of feigned outrage. "Okun," he bellowed, his voice thick with accusation. "Why have you slain my friend the leopard? I will take this to the king, and he will judge you harshly." Okun's face paled, his eyes wide with fear. "Effiong, no," he stammered, clutching his gun. "The king will have my head. Let us settle this quietly. Take the 200 rods you owe me as a gift, and speak no more of this." Effiong's eyes gleamed, but he feigned reluctance, pacing the compound as if weighing his friend's fate. "Very well," he said at last, his voice heavy with false mercy. "Go, and I will bury my friend." Okun fled, relief etched on his face, leaving Effiong alone with the leopard's corpse. Instead of burial, Effiong dragged the body into his hut, his knife flashing as he skinned it with care. The flesh he roasted, the scent filling the air with a grim feast, and the hide he cured under the sun, dusting it with wood ash, until it was supple and fine. When it was ready, he carried it to a distant market, where traders clamored for the prize, their coins piling high. Effiong returned home, his purse heavy once more, his cunning unpunished. And so it is that the bush cat, to this day, hunts the cock, claiming it as rightful payment for the rods Effiong never repaid, a debt etched in blood and betrayal.